Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to look into the next big feature which was introduced in AgilePoint NX V7 release, which is called form-based application. Now it is also commonly known as form as a service application or a data-driven application. This has been the most awaited feature in V7 where you can create standalone data-driven applications which do not need a process model. Data in a form-based application can originate and get stored back in multiple data sources like SQL database, including things like Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL Server, etc., AgilePoint NX built-in data entities, Salesforce entities, or SharePoint lists. Let's see how to design a new form-based application on top of an already designed data entity in AgilePoint NX. So in my previous demo, what you saw was I created an entity called customer and which had certain set of fields. So if I drill down, these were the fields. And it had a child table called order history, which stores order history of that customer, which has a relationship with the parent table. So I'm going to define an application on top of it. So I'm going to go to build apps. I'm going to click on add an app. Now this is where I'm given a choice that whether I want to create a process-based application or a form-based application. I'm going to say I want to create a form-based application. I'm going to call it com1. Next, it asks me to select a data source. So I can select my SQL database as a data source. In this case, I'm going to select data entity. It could be Salesforce, SharePoint as well. So I'm going to select data entity. So I'm going to give it a name. And either I can see all the entities or I wanted to see only custom entities, then it will list my custom entities. So I'll select customer as my entity, primary entity against which I want to design my application. In the fields tab, I can select all the fields which will be available to my application. So by default, all the fields are selected, but I can selectively select the fields, some of the fields as well. And in the related entity tab, it will show me which child entities record I want to bring along with the parent entities. I'm going to say also bring down the order history. Now I can even drill down further to the child entity and select which columns of child entity will be brought back. So I'm going to select all of them for now and click finish. So what it did for me is it generated an application and 80% of the code in this application is auto-generated for me. So if you see, it created a blank form, which is called new customer. This is where I would spend most of my time. It created a blank form called update customer, which will be used to edit customer information, but you'll see how I can readily copy whatever I did in the new form into the update customer later in my demo. And it generated 3 out of the box list views, one to show all a list of all customers, recently created customers, and recently modified customer. Now I can add more views on top of it, but those are the 3 which are generated out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So it takes me to the new form, new record window. I'm going to say, okay, I want it to be a 2-column layout. Just to make it look a little bit better, I'm going to add a heading called customer details. And I'm going to start dragging and dropping the controls. So I'm going to say drag and drop name. Now, as you can see, it didn't pop up the dialog which you probably saw in some of my previous demos on form as a service where it asked me to select a control type. The reason for this is because while designing my data entity, I already told the control type. While I was designing a form-based application on top of, say, a Salesforce or a SharePoint list, or even custom database, those I didn't know the field type because they were defined in those underlying systems as generic data types like string or boolean. In this case, I know exactly the type because this is AgilePoint built-in entity, and I can auto map it for you. I'm going to go ahead and do email to email. So as you will see, this automatically is email control. Phone, so it automatically picked up the phone regex for me. Address, so it figured out that it was text area over there while designing my entity. City, state. Now I can also drag and drop region. Region is a pick list in my data entity. So if you see over here, it is automatically bound to my pick list called country or region code. So the form is intelligent enough to do this. Next, I'm going to drag and drop a heading, and I'm going to call it order history. And I'm going to next drag and drop the child control on this surface. So I'm going to say I want to see it as a subform. So it automatically detected that it's a repeating control. So it would be either a data grid or a subform. I'm going to say, okay, I want to use a subform. I'll span it across 2 columns. So if you see the properties over here, it is marked as a row-based layout. If you want, you can change it to a column-based layout, and it's already repeatable. And I'm going to go ahead and go into the subform edit view. I'm going to make it 5 columns. Switch to the data source. And over here, I see the child nodes of the nodes are under that child control. So I'm going to say, let's drag and drop date, quantity, unit price, amount. Again, it is automatically figuring out what kind of control to put. So I didn't have to do any of those. Now I could have created it as a formula control as well. At any point of time, I can decide that drag and drop a control from here, and then later on drag and drop one of the nodes on top of it, and it does the data binding as well. So I'm not limited to the default choice. I can change it if I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and say save and check in. Next, I'm going to design my update customer form. I'm going to click on it, and it immediately tells me that, do you want to copy the layout of the new customer to this form? And I'm going to say yes. So I spent most of the time on my first form, and rest of the second form, the update form, is auto generated for me. That's why I said 80% was already done for me. I can go into bulk edit and selectively mark them as read only if I wanted, or change some other properties, but I'm going to keep it as is. So I'm done. Other than that, there are 3 default views which have been generated, and I'm going to go with the default views. I can add additional ones, but I'm going to go with the default views. Now, one thing to note is, in the list of applications, anything which is process based is with this icon, and anything which is form based has a form icon next to it, so that you can visually identify it as well. I'm going to go ahead and click publish, check in. And I can specify what is going to be my default view. This is shown only in case of a form based application. So I'm going to keep default view as all customers and click publish. So next I'm going to switch to Work Center and go to my apps. This is where I can launch my application. Now this is not the only way of doing it. With the page builder feature, I can create my own custom menu and put this link in that menu as well. So you can see there is a application called com1 over here. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And right now I have a couple of sample records which I created with the other application and this data entity. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. Let's just put in some data. I'm going to say this is United States. That was the pick list shown over there. And I'm going to start putting some amount over here. I'll go ahead and replicate this row just to show two items. And click submit. And you can see that a new record was created. I can view it. I can edit it right from here. You can see it got persisted. I can put it in edit mode. I can change the data. Say I want to modify the email ID and click submit. If I go back to my data entity, which is in build apps, and if I go to customer, look at the data, the new record got persisted over there. Similarly, if I go to the order history, the records which I entered today are also listed over here. Thanks a lot for your time.